Shalom, this is YAHAWAH with the GMS Dallas camp. First off, I want to give all praises to YAHAWASHI, double honors to the elders and apostles and elders of Great Millstone who teach and rule well, and salutations to the Akim scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, keeping his word in truth and sincerity. I just wanted to do a video on this chapter here. Pretty much just read through this chapter, and bring out some points, because this chapter stood out to me. Pretty much going into Jehu and him being anointed as king, and pretty much taking action, when it came to the Israel worshiping idols and going off in general, So I'm gonna start off with 2 Kings chapter 9 verse 1. And Elisha the prophet called one of the children of the prophets and said unto him, Gird up thy loins, and take this box of oil in thine hand, and go to Ramoth Gilead. So you had the prophet Elisha, right? Or Elisha, however you want to pronounce it. And he told, called one of the children of the prophets, and told him to take that oil, and to go to Ramoth Gilead, Verse 2, and when thou comest thither, look out there Jehu the son of Jehoshaphat, the son of Nimshi, and go in and make him arise up from among his brethren, and carry him to an inner chamber. Verse 3, then take the box of oil, and pour it on his head, and say, Thus saith the Lord, I have anointed thee king over Israel. Then open the door and flee and tarry not. You know what I'm saying? So he said, Elisha sent, this young man, to pretty much go and tell Jehu that he's been anointed king over Israel. He had the box of oil, which he used to anoint, to pour on his head and to anoint him, because that was a Hebrew custom, right? Verse 4, so the young man, the prophet, went to Ramoth Gilead, so he did what he was told. Verse 5, and when he came, behold, the captains of the host were sitting, and he said, I have an errand to thee, O captain. And Jehu said, unto which of us? And he said, to thee, O captain. Verse 6, and he arose and went into the house, and he poured the oil on his head, and said unto him, Thus saith the Lord power of Israel, I have anointed thee king over the people of the Lord, even over Israel. And thou shalt smite the house of Ahab thy master, that I may avenge the blood of my servants the prophets, and the blood of all the servants of the Lord at the hand of Jezebel. Because Jezebel was a wicked ass woman, man. And you had Ahab, you had Jezebel, pretty much delegating to Ahab, committing all types of wickedness. That's why I said right there, that I may avenge the blood of my servants the prophets. Verse 8, for the whole house of Ahab shall perish, and I will cut off from Ahab him that pisseth against the wall, and him that is shut up and left in Israel. And I will make the house of Ahab like the house of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, and like the house of Baasha the son of Ahijah. And the dogs shall eat Jezebel in the portion of Jezreel, and there shall be none to bury her. And he opened the floor and fled, man. So then, he was going to cast that judgment, and it made it pretty detailed what he was going to do to Jezebel, and that's what, and that happens, and it happens exactly like he said, man. Them dogs ate that, that woman, tore her apart. And there shall be, as we go, Lord willing, we'll get to it later on in this, I believe in the next chapter, or it might be in the same chapter. And there shall be none to bury her, and he opened the door and fled, right? Verse 11, so Jehu was anointed king by this point. Verse 11. Then Jehu came forth to the servants of his Lord, and one said unto him, Is all well? Wherefore came this mad fellow to thee? And he said unto them, ye know the man and his communication. So he was like, you already know, right? Verse 12. And they said, It is false. Tell us now. And he said, Thus and thus spake he to me, saying, Thus saith the Lord, I have anointed thee king over Israel. Verse 13. Then they hasted and took every man his garment, and put it under him on the top of the stairs, and blew with trumpets, saying, Jehu is king. Right? Verse 14. So Jehu the son of Jehoshaphat, the son of Nimshi, conspired against Joram. Now Joram had kept Ramoth Gilead, he and all Israel, because of Hazael, king of Syria. Verse 15. But King Joram was returned to be healed in Jezreel of the wounds which the Syrians had given him when he fought with Hazael, king of Syria. And Jehu said, If it be your minds, then let none go forth nor escape out of the city to go to tell it in Jezreel. Verse 16. So Jehu rode in a chariot and went to Jezreel, for Joram lay there, and Ahaziah king of Judah was come down to see Joram. Verse 17. And there stood a watchman on a tower in Jezreel, and he spied the company of Jehu as he came, and said, I see a company. And Joram said, Take a horseman sent to meet them, and let him say, Is it peace? So he had sent somebody to go down there and scout, to see if pretty much if Jehu was coming in peace or to fight. Right? Verse 18. So there went one on horseback to meet him, and said, Thus saith the king, Is it peace? So the man that was sent, pretty much went up there and asked Jehu, is it, you come in peace? Right? And it says, and Jehu said, What hast thou to do with peace? Turn thee behind me. Turn thee behind me. And the watchman told, saying, The messenger came to them, but he cometh not again. So the messenger didn't come back. Verse 19. Then he sent out a second on horseback, which came to them, and said, Thus saith the king, Is it peace? And Jehu answered, What hast thou to do with peace? Turn thee behind me. So he said the same thing. What do you got to do with peace? And the messenger, Verse 20. And the watchman told, saying, He came even unto them, and cometh not again. And the driving is like the driving of Jehu the son of Nimshi, for he driveth fiercely. So that second messenger didn't come back also, man. And they could tell by the way that Jehu was riding on that chariot, or on that horse. On that horse. That he was driving that he was riding a certain way, man. Like it says right there, fiercely. So they were they were starting to probably thinking in their head like, damn. He probably coming over here to to fuck some shit up or something, Verse 21. And Joram said, Make ready, and his chariot was made ready. And Joram king of Israel and Ahaziah king of Judah went out, each in his chariot, and they went out against Jehu, and met him in the portion of Naboth the Jezreelite. And it came to pass, when Joram saw Jehu, that he said, Is it peace, Jehu? So he asked him the same thing. So Joram went down there himself, and asked Jehu, Is it peace? And this is what he said. And he answered, What peace? So long as the whoredoms of thy mother Jezebel and her witchcrafts are also so many. What I'm saying? So he's like, what peace, man? All the wickedness that your mother Jezebel and her, how can there be peace? After all the witchcrafts, are so many. All these evils, man. All this wickedness that y'all been doing. How can there be peace? Verse 23. And Joram turned his hands and fled, and said to Ahaziah, There is treachery, O Ahaziah. So he's pretty much like, man, we being pretty much we being what's the word, Oh yeah, treachery. Verse 24. And Jehu drew a bow with his full strength, and smote Jehoram between his arms, and the arrow went out at his heart, and he sunk down in his chariot, man. So he put Jehoram to death. Verse 25. Then said Jehu in Bidkar, his captain, take up and cast him in the portion of the field of Naboth the Jezreelite. For remember how that when I and thou rode together after Ahab his father, the Lord laid his burden upon him. So they pretty much buried him. Let's see. Then he said, Jehu to Bidkar, his captain, take up and cast him in the portion of the field of Naboth the Jezreelite. For remember how that when I and thou rode together after Ahab his father, the Lord laid his burden upon him. Let's see, verse 26. Surely I have seen yesterday the blood of Naboth and the blood of his sons, saith the Lord, and I will requite thee in this plat, saith the Lord. Now therefore take and cast him into the plat of ground, according to the word of the Lord. Verse 27. But when Ahaziah the king of Judah saw this, he fled by the way of the garden house, and Jehu followed after him and said, smite him also in the chariot. And they did so at the going up to Gur, which is by Ibleam. And he fled to Megiddo and died there. So he also died. And verse 28. And his servants carried him in a chariot to Jerusalem and buried him in his sepulchre with his fathers in the city of David. Verse 29. And in the 11th year of Joram the son of Ahab began Ahaziah to reign over Judah. See, in the 11th year of Joram the son of Ahab began. And Jehu was come to Jezreel, Jezebel heard it, and she painted her face and tired her head, right, and looked out at a window. And as Jehu entered in at the gate, she said, had Zimri peace, who slew his master? And he lifted up his face to the window and said, who is on my side? Who? And there looked out to him 2 or 3 eunuchs. Verse 33. And he said, throw her down. So they threw her down, and some of her blood was sprinkled on the wall and on the horses, and he trod under her foot, man. So they, he asked, who, pretty much asked, who was on his side. And there was 3 eunuchs, and he told them to throw her over, and she, she probably hit her head on the wall or something while she was falling, and when, the blood came out, she hit the floor, you know what I'm saying? Let's see, verse 34. And when he was come in, he did eat and drink and said, right. Okay. And when he was come in, he did eat and drink and said, go see now this cursed woman and bury her, for she is a king's daughter. And they went to bury her, but they found no more of her than the skull and the feet and the palms of her hands. Wherefore they came again and told him, and he said, this is the word of the Lord, which he spake by his servant Elijah the Tishbite, saying, in the portion of Jezreel shall dogs eat the flesh of Jezebel, man, which is what we read earlier in the first few verses, man. The Most High said that he was going to have them dogs, tear her apart, and that's what happened, And the carcasses of Jezebel shall be as dung upon the face of the field in the portion of Jezreel, so that they shall not say, this is Jezebel, So, and the carcasses shall be as dung upon the face of the field in the portion of Jezreel, so that they shall not say, this is Jezebel. So her her body was pretty torn up pretty well, man. Like you just read, man. Only her skull and her, and I believe it said her hands. Let's see, the palms of her hands, and her feet. That's the only things that remained, So, them dogs tore up pretty good, man. And that's their judgment, for all that, like we read in them earlier verses, for all the whoredoms and the witchcrafts. You know what I'm saying? And Ahab, this is chapter 10, right? And Ahab had 70 sons in Samaria, and Jehu wrote letters and sent to Samaria unto the rulers of Jezreel, to the elders, and to them that brought up Ahab's children, saying, Now as soon as this letter cometh to you, seeing your master's sons are with you, and there are with you chariots and horses, and fenced cities also, and armor, look even out the best and meetest of your master's sons, and set him on his father's throne, and fight for your master's house. But they were exceedingly afraid, and said, Behold, 2 kings stood not before him. How then shall we stand? And he that was over the house, and he that was over the city, the elders also, and the bringers up of the children, sent to Jehu, saying, We are thy servants, and will do all that thou shalt bid us. We will not make any king. Do thou that which is good in thine eyes. So they submitted to him. Verse 6. Then he wrote a letter the second time to them, saying, If ye be mine, and if ye will hearken unto my voice, take ye the heads of the men your master's sons, and come to me to Jezreel by the morrow this time. Now the king's sons, being 70 persons, were with the great men of the city which brought them up. And it came to pass, when the letter came to them, that they took the king's sons, and slew 70 persons, and put their heads in baskets, and sent him them to Jezreel. Verse 8. And there came a messenger, and told him, saying, They have brought the heads of the king's sons. And he said, Lay ye them up in 2 heaps, at the entering in of the gate until the morning. Verse 9. And it came to pass in the morning that he went out, and stood, and said to all the people, Ye be righteous, behold, I conspired against my master, and slew him. But who slew all these? Verse 10. Now know now that there shall fall unto the earth nothing of the word of the Lord, which the Lord spake concerning the house of Ahab. For the Lord hath done that which he spake by his servant Elijah, which is what we read in the last chapter. Let me go back to it real quick. Let's see, take the box, let's see, give me 1 second. Okay, here we go, verse 7, right? And thou shalt smite the house of Ahab thy master, that I may avenge the blood of my servants, the prophets, and the blood of all the servants of the Lord, at the hand of Jezebel. In verse 8, For the whole house of Ahab shall perish, and I will cut off from Ahab him that pisseth against the wall, and him that is shut up and left in Israel. And I will make the house of Ahab like the house of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, and like the house of Baasha the son of Ahijah. You know what I'm saying? And that's what that's referring to, man. And Ahab had 70 sons. Let's see. But they were seen, but he there. Let's see. And then he wrote letters. And it came a messenger, and it came to pass. Verse 10. Which is what we, why we went back to chapter 9. Because that's what this was referring to, right? Know now that there shall fall unto the earth nothing of the word of the Lord, which the Lord spake concerning the house of Ahab, man. So, what the Most High said was going to happen, it happened concerning the house of Ahab, and Jezebel. For the Lord had done that which he spake by his servant Elijah. So Jehu slew all that remained of the house of Ahab, and Jezreel, or Salakia, and all his great men, and his kinfolks, and his priests, until he left him none remaining, man. So the Most High, what Elisha said the Most High was going to do, man, he did. Like I said, like we just read, man, Jehu slew all that remained of the house of Ahab in Jezreel. Verse 12. And he arose and departed, and came to Samaria, and as he was at the shearing house in the way. 13. Jehu met with the brethren of Ahaziah, king of Judah, and said, Who are ye? And they answered, We are the brethren of Ahaziah, and we go down to salute the children of the king and the children of the queen. Right? Verse 14. And he said, Take them alive. And they took them alive, and slew them at the pit of the shearing house, even 42 men, neither left he any of them. Man, so Jehu was house cleaning, man. He's getting rid of all these wicked Israelites. You know, verse 15. And when he was departed thence, he lighted on Jehonadab, the son of Rechab, coming to meet him. And he saluted him and said to him, Is thine heart right as my heart is with thy heart? And Jehonadab answered, It is. If it be, give me thine hand. And he gave him his hand, and he took him up to him into the chariot. And he said, Come with me and see my zeal for the Lord. So they made him ride in his chariot, man. So, hey, you know, Jehu, man, you know, like I said, was a house cleaner, man. He was going around seeing who was you know, who was right, you know, who was on his side, you know, who was on the Lord's side, you know. And if you weren't right, you know, he was going to put you to death straight up, you know. Verse 17. And when he came to Samaria, he slew all that remained unto Ahab in Samaria, till he had destroyed him, according to the saying of the Lord, which he spake to Elijah. Right? There goes that prophecy again. Verse 18. And Jehu gathered all the people together, and said unto them, Ahab served Baal a little, but Jehu shall serve him much. Okay, I see. You know, so he was pretty much saying, like, okay, you know what? Ahab served Baal a little bit, man, but hey, Jehu's going to do, you know, he's going to do it big. You know, he's going to do bigger than Ahab. You know, pretty much put, you know, bluffing. Verse 19, you know, Now therefore call unto me all the prophets of Baal, and all his servants, and all his priests. Let none be wanting, for I have a great sacrifice to do to Baal. Whosoever shall be wanting, he shall not live. But Jehu did it in subtlety, to the intent that he might destroy the worshippers of Baal. So he, you know, he was bluffing, man. He was pretty much just saying that to get all these people that serve, that, you know, serving this idol Baal, you know, and all them prophets that serve Baal, you know, and gathering them together, you know, that's why he had said that, right? You know, that's why it says, but Jehu did it in subtlety, right? Verse 20, And Jehu said, Proclaim a solemn assembly for Baal, and they proclaimed it. And Jehu sent through all Israel, and all the worshippers of Baal came, so that there was not a man left that came not. You know, so everybody came. All them worshippers of Baal came. And they came into the house of Baal, and the house of Baal was full from one end to another, man. So that hole was packed. Verse 22, And he said unto him that was over the vestry, Bring forth vestments for all the worshippers of Baal. And he brought them forth vestments. Verse 23, And Jehu went, and Jehonadab the son of Rechab, into the house of Baal, and said unto the worshippers of Baal, Search and look that there be here with you none of the servants of the Lord, but the worshippers of Baal only. So he made sure that none of the no man that served the Most High was in there, you know. Only worshippers of Baal. Verse 24, And when they went in to offer sacrifices and burnt offerings, Jehu appointed 80 men without, and said, If any of the men whom I have brought into your hands escape, he that let him go, his life shall be for the life of him, you know. So he got, you know, Jehu got himself a handful of men, and he pretty much told him, like, look, if you let anybody escape, man, you know, you know, you gonna be the one that's gonna be put to death, you know, instead of that man that escaped, you know. Verse 25, And it came to pass, as soon as he had made an end of offering the burnt offering, that Jehu said to the guard and to the captains, Go in and slay them, let none come forth. And they smote them with the edge of the sword, and the guard and the captains cast them out, and went into the city of the house of Baal. And they brought forth the images out of the house of Baal and burned them. You know, so they put everybody to death, man. And all the images and everything that they were using to worship Baal, you know, they burned it. And they break down the image of Baal, and break down the house of Baal, and made it a draught house unto this day. Thus Jehu destroyed Baal out of Israel. Howbeit, from the sins of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, who made Israel to sin, Jehu departed not from after them, to wit, the golden calves that were in Bethel and that were in Dan. You know, so Jehu was still going off. You know what I'm saying? And the Lord said unto Jehu, Because thou hast done well in executing that which is right in my eyes, and has, let me see, howbeit from the sins of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, who made Israel departed not. Okay, verse 30. And the Lord said unto Jehu, because thou hast done well in executing that which is right in mine eyes, and hast done unto the house of Ahab according to all that was in mine heart, thy children of the foreigner shall sit on the throne of Israel. But Jehu took no heed to walk in the law of the Lord power of Israel with all his heart, for he departed not from the sins of Jeroboam, which made Israel to sin. In those days the Lord began to cut Israel short, and Hazael smote them in all the coasts of Israel. From Jordan, let's see, from Jordan eastward, all the land of Gilead, the Gadites and the Reubenites and the Manassites, from Aurora, which is by the river Arnon, even Gilead and Bashan. Now the rest of the acts of Jehu and all that he did, and all his might, are they not written in the book of the chronicles of the kings of Israel? And Jehu slept with his fathers, and they buried him in Samaria, and Jehoahaz his son reigned in his stead. And the time that Jehu reigned over Israel was in Samaria was 20 and 8 years, man. But yeah, that's a story that stands out to me, because just reading it, it's pretty much an enjoyable read, and Lord willing, I do at least one type of video like this a week, just pretty much going back and reading the stories, of certain kings and certain things that happened, what I'm saying, pretty much the history, but yeah, Lord, that I'm saying shalom.